although people still get it wrong when they talk now about the mind-body connection.
What do they get
That's
wrong?
better than we have two separate things. Now they're connected. Well, the reason it's wrong, how are they connected? How do you get from this fuzzy thing called a thought to something material called a body? And you can't explain it. I say, wait, these are just words. This is going to sound silly, but you could have had mind, body, and elbows. And then we consider people in a different way. I say, let's just put mind and body back together. You're one person. It's one thing. Now think of it. If it's one thing, wherever you're putting one, mind and body, you're putting the other. What that means is that our minds have enormous control over our bodies. And once we recognize that, then we can harness some of our own power and cure many of the disorders, or certainly help along many of the problems that afflict too many of us.
Just remarkable landmark research on this. You mentioned 50 years of research. One of the most fascinating studies, at least for me, was involving elderly men.
So the idea was, if we can take the mind and put the mind in a younger place, and take our measurements from our bodies, will we get any effect? So what we did was we retrofitted a retreat to 20 years earlier, and we had elderly men live there as if they were their younger selves. Now, it's interesting because they are around 80, but that was not when 80 is now the new 60.
Yes.
They were really old. In fact, when they would show up to see if they could be in the study, and, I'm here and they're coming in and they walk in, I say, why am I doing this? Because I didn't know if they were going to be able to live through the day. And so I set them up at this retreat where I'm in charge of everything in their lives. I mean, if I realized then what I was taking on, but I'm glad that I did it because the results were very exciting. So basically, we have old men living in this place, not Hollywood because I couldn't afford it,
okay,
but as well as we could make it seem as if it was 20 years earlier.
Got it. So they're like living in a building where it looks like, oh, wow, I've gone back in time.
Yeah. And so they would be speaking about the Cuban Missile Crisis and other events of the past as if it was just happening. All right. And so, and they'd be watching television shows and movies from the past as if, they had just been produced. All right. So as well as we could, we took them back in time. In a period less than a week, what we found was their vision improved, their hearing improved, their memory, their strength, and they looked noticeably younger.
What?
All without any medical intervention.
Like when you saw this and you're like, less than a week, I make somebody
what it tells me is that our thoughts are preventing all sorts of very positive behaviors. What happens is, so you go to the doctor and you take the Snelling eye chart.
Who?
It doesn't matter. You look at the eye chart.
Oh, the E and the Fs and the Gs and the Hs? Yes, okay.
Now, a normal person just answers what letter is. For me, I say, wait a second. This thing is rigged. As you go down, they're creating the expectation from me that soon I'm not going to be able to see. I said, what would happen if we reverse the eye chart, where now the letters get larger and larger, thereby changing my expectation to soon I'll be able to see. And when we do that, people can see what they couldn't see before.
What?
But just think about it. You go and you're reading letters that have no meaning.
I'm sitting there looking at shapes. I'm like, is that an I or an H or a flip or what? Is that a J or a J? Yeah.
And it's in black and white.
Yes.
What does that have to do with the real world? I don't know about you, but if I'm hungry, I can see that restaurant sign very far in the distance. Colors are different from black and white. Things that are moving are different from things that are still. For me personally, I see best, I believe, probably around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning rather than 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But that's not what happens. You go to the doctor, you can't see for whatever reason, you're given a prescription, and then you put on glasses, which are now going to ensure that your eyes don't get better on their own. So we take the eye chart. Now, most people believe when you get about 2/3 of the way down, now you're not going to be able to see. So that's a mindset, right? So what we did, we started the eye chart 1/3 of the way down, So now 2/3 of hold it constant, the 2/3 part, but they're much smaller letters. And again, people could see what they couldn't see.
So you took away the big stuff. You started with the middle layer, and that tricked people into being like, oh, I can do the top layer.
Exactly. So the whole point as you're getting to it is to recognize that who says you can't do it? And you don't want to be able to do everything perfectly, because then it's like playing tic-tac-toe, tic-tac-toe with a 5-year-old. You're always going to win, but there's no there.
You have reading from your book, page 53 of The Mindful
53,
Body.
yes.
I know, you remember that,
well.
right? It's called Just Try Harder.
Yeah.
If we find that something is unpleasant to do, we may try to overcome the feeling and do it anyway. Given that the distaste is in our head and not in the task, thinking differently about it is likely to be more successful.
Right. So we have to get rid of the idea that there are good things and bad things, things I like, things I hate, people I like, people I hate, tastes that are, good for us, bad for us. All of this is a function of our mindsets.
So you did this incredible study that you ran at a hotel with housekeepers.
Oh, yeah. So this is the second study in testing the mind-body unity idea.
Okay.
So here we take housekeepers who, first thing we did was ask them, how much exercise do you get? Now, these are women cleaning hotel and motel rooms all day long. Oddly, they say they're not getting any exercise. And that's because they think exercise is what you do after work. And after work, they're just too tired. Okay, so now we take these women, divide them into 2 groups. One group, we're going to teach them that their work is exercise. They're told, working at the gym on this machine is like making a bed is like working on the machine. We teach them that everything they're doing is in fact exercise. So very simple studies. We have 2 groups. One group that now knows their work is exercise. The other group that doesn't realize their work is exercise. We take hosts of measures before we start and at the end. The 2 groups are not eating any differently. One group isn't working any harder. They're basically the same, except one group believes their work is exercise. As a result of that change in mind, they lost weight. There was a change in waist to hip ratio, body mass index, and their blood pressure came down from changing their minds.
Why do you think that happens? Is there something about the lack of stress or judgment that shifts the chemical?
There may be, some explanation like that, but I believe that our minds and bodies are one. And if our mind is set to see what we're doing as something good for us, it'll generally be good for us.